All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Financial Freedom Through Apartment Investing. I am your host, Mark Caesar, and we are a proud affiliate of the GOB network of apartment investors. And today we have a very special guest. She is one of my teaching assistants from a course that I just took, and she is an amazing woman by the name of Dierdre Malloy. Just a brief background on Dierdre and what she does. Dierdre Malloy is the vice chair of the board of directors of Integrity House, Inc. She has served on the board since 2009. As for her experience, she currently leads the strategy process for affordable housing ordinances and development at the municipal level and for New Jersey state legislator, regulatory housing registration, violations reporting, remediation, and improvements. Prior to becoming a committed entrepreneur, she worked at Integrity House as Dave Kerr's executive assistant in 1993 to 1995. Ms. Malloy has a background in the corporate business sector, having worked at Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey as a healthcare account manager. Remaining at the healthcare industry, Ms. Malloy took a position as business system analyst at Prudential Healthcare in Newark, New Jersey, where she led the Y2K project and was quickly promoted to multifunctional project manager. She transitioned to the Roseland, New Jersey team at Prudential Healthcare to Aetna's business acquisition core team. There, she provided support to and eventually led domestic logistics for products and services of 7 locations across the U.S. for one of the industry's largest business merger acquisition deals. Ms. Malloy became licensed with the New Jersey Department of Banking and Insurance Real Estate Commission in 2003 as a salesperson and transitioned her career. From 2003 to 2007, Ms. Malloy also managed the Short Hills, New Jersey office, Southampton Rentals, and business of a private life insurance and estate planning firm, where she was responsible for managing real estate assets and financial portfolios of over $10 million. In 2009, Ms. Malloy founded Lord & Powers LLC consulting company to lead a housing development project in Montclair, New Jersey. Today, she is also licensed in real estate in New York State, and is a member of the New Jersey Board of Realtors Political Affairs Committee. Through her company, Ms. Malloy provides housing industry compliance related state and federal regulatory consulting and workshops to municipalities, HUD certified nonprofit 501c3 housing agencies, for profit agencies, and public housing authorities. In 2016, Ms. Malloy was lead consultant project manager for Talbot Village, Montclair, New Jersey, New Jersey's first new construction affordable housing community. My apologies. The Housing and Community Development of Newark, New Jersey awarded the Township of Montclair an Innovative New Development Award in 2018 for this project. Ms. Malloy has an advanced certificate in construction project management, which she obtained from NJIT in 2014. She will be concluding pursuing a Bachelor's of Science in Planning and Public Administration at Rutgers, Newark, and plans to complete by 2022. Dierdre, thank you so much again for being here. This is a very, very intensive bio. I hope I did it justice.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you for having me. Some things have changed since you received that bio. And for anyone who's a researcher like me, my website is down. And I'm changing the whole dynamic of how my consulting business works. And right now, attorneys are working behind the scenes to do the paperwork on that. So even the business registry is changing. First of all, I want to thank everybody for attending. And obviously, Mark, thank you for asking me to participate here. I am here to talk about affordable housing investments, and I'm not real sure who is in the audience. But first, I'll share a little bit more about what I'm working on, and then I'll just go into a general overview. And if folks have questions, feel free to ask. If I am unable to answer your question, I'm not going to pretend to answer your question, and I'm definitely going to refer you to a resource that could. I just feel it's important for people to have facts. It looks as though from some of the background that many of you may already be investing in real estate. I'm not sure. Since Talbot Village, which was the first 100% all affordable new construction townhome community with a ground lease and an HOA that was funded by HUD, DCA, New Jersey Department of Community Affairs, home grant monies, private investments, municipal money. It even had angel investors involved. It was almost a $3 million project. And before I came into the team, the nonprofit had undervaluated the townhomes, which means when I went to look at the pro forma, I could immediately tell by the way the homes were priced that they were going to lose money on the project. And eventually there was a point where there was a nightmare hard stop and everybody walked off the site, which was maybe 3 weeks after I came in, when the executive director of the nonprofit up and resigned. I knew she was leaving, but she didn't tell the board and everyone else, and she didn't let me know until the day before she was leaving that she was leaving. But in any case, I made it through that project. It was very complex. So what I will say is, if you are interested in purchasing or investing in or developing affordable housing, I think one of the first important things to do is understand where you want to do it and what kind of funding you're going to choose to build it, and who your partners are going to be. Because unless you have really deep pockets for strategic purposes, you should probably have some very tangible alliances in order to do that. I'm not sure, is everybody on this call from New York or New Jersey?
We have well, I know Mr. Darrell up there. He's from New Jersey. And I think we have slew of people from across the states.
Okay. Okay, so basically, the process for the most part, it should pretty much be the same. I don't know how many people have already invested. Has anyone, thank you, Lawrence. Has anyone already invested in affordable housing development? Minneapolis. Hi, Minneapolis. Arizona. Hello, Texas. Hi, everybody. Is there anyone on here who has not already tried to invest in affordable housing real estate? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so I'm going to assume that the majority of the people have not. Thank you, Lisa. The reason I asked that question is because that will kind of help me guide the conversation. I'm not going to show any PowerPoints or anything like that. I'll be happy to come back to do that kind of thing. But for right now, it's just sort of like an introductory conversation. Hi, Sony. So basically, if you're an investor in real estate, that's a good thing because people are going to always need some place to live. If you are looking to do affordable housing in terms of building it, that's different from simply managing it. But one of the things I like to tell people is know where you can build affordable housing. What does that mean? Each municipality has what's called a development plan or a redevelopment plan, right? So wherever you're looking at, whatever county, whatever township or city or rural area that you're looking to do that, you need to understand first and foremost what that governing body's goal is for and toward affordable housing. And I say for and toward is because each state is different, but in New Jersey, there's a law called Mount Laurel If you Google that, you'll find out more about it, where it to date requires municipalities to build a certain amount of affordable housing. Some municipalities are better than others at doing that, and it has been hemmed up in the courts. And even some years ago, Governor Murphy kind of did away with the Coalition on Affordable Housing, which was the state's, I guess, watchdog agency that's supposed to monitor that process. So you should know what your municipality or your township's plan is to build affordable housing. And the reason I say that is because if they don't have one, it's going to be an even steeper hill to climb, right? But if they do, then that's a good thing. You can look at the map and see where their zones are for that. And then you can drill down to take a look at the lots, et cetera. And then you've got to do some other research to see what's available. But you can also contact the planning department and they'll be able to talk to you about that. If the planner is very public friendly, that person should be able to have a conversation with you and or point you to their online resources through the municipal website to let you know where you should start looking. And if a property, I'm sorry, somebody's asking me a question. Hold on. Okay. Jeanette York wants to know exactly what affordable housing is. Okay, affordable housing is housing that's built to satisfy individuals of very low, and moderate income. And it's based off of your area median income, right? So let's say an area median income is $106,000. So it could be 50% AMI, 30%, or something like that. That's something else you need to look at to find out what that means for the area in which you want to try to either build or manage in. And you can look at HUD.gov. You can go to the website there and just type in affordable housing rates for your state and your city, and even drills down to municipality. And that way you can get the exact numbers of what the affordable housing income ranges are. Okay. So that's a start right there, right? And so for an example of a tool, I'm sending everybody in the link in the chat, I'm sorry. This is for New York, and it shares what their lots, what vacant lots they have. And it talks about, you know, the different types of lots, how the map works. And then there's resources there so that individuals who are interested in purchasing land, you know, what that process is. And then it talks about the other vacancies. And the reason I pulled this up is because there are a lot of people who are running for mayor in New York, and everybody's talking about affordable housing. And to be quite frank, that frustrates me because, you know, they throw those two words out there because they know there's a dire need for it, especially in the pandemic. But I've found that once they get into office, it's the status quo. I mean, I really don't see much happening, and I don't know if anybody, and I'm digressing on purpose very briefly, but I don't know if anybody has been following NYCHA, New York Housing Authority, and what has happened under the Trump presidency when he sent the HUD housing person to stay in projects over there in the apartments for some people. And she promised all of this and that and everything. And then, you know, Governor Cuomo and Mayor de Blasio and HUD had got all this money, millions and millions of dollars of federal money to help repair the unconscionable living circumstances. I mean, people were living with holes in their ceilings, you know, cold water, you name it. And And, I was someone who was part of the competing bid for the removal of the mold remediation, but it went to someone else. And in looking at the specs for the funding, um, it's not rocket science. It's just not rocket science to fix some of these issues. So I think the process from the housing authority side, and when you look at large municipalities and cities like New York, it's very convoluted. It's very complex and it's very political, and it can be very challenging. So really understand the, for a lack of a better term, beast you're about to tame or attempt to tame. There's a lot of moving parts in getting involved with affordable housing, but it can be done. So I just give that as an example, although I don't think you're going to be going into public housing, but there's just a whole lot of bureaucracy that can hold things up. And this is why I strongly recommend having a strong team when you go in, before you even go in. So with regard to the information I just shared with you as an example, each state has a place where you can go and look for vacant land. So you'll just need to find out where the vacant land is in your municipality or really, or in your city. Okay, and then again, you want to connect to the governing body, the planning department, and the zoning department, because you want to understand what you can build, what you can't build, and those kinds of things. Any questions before I move on?
I do have one question for you though, and I know we spoke about this before. When it comes to affordable housing, who funds it? Where does the money come from to actually get the project running?
That's a good question, Mark. So you determine where that money comes from, right? So when you want to start with your project, you want to, first of all, understand how much money you're going to have, right? So when you talk about land acquisition, you got to understand how much the land is going to cost first and foremost, right? And then I also recommend doing title searches on land, regardless of what a municipality or a private individual is telling you, because you want to know if there's any liens on the property, you want to know other things. And then you're going to also, and I'm kind of putting the cart before the horse, but I think for the sake of the conversation, you'll be able to flow with what I'm saying. And I'm going to get to your question about where does the money come from. So you want to do the research on the land, obviously, and after acquisition, then you're going to want to do phase 1, 2, and 3 environmentals. So that's going to cost you as well. So where does the money come from? Depending on the type of property you're building, and I say property because it doesn't necessarily already have to be affordable housing, right? It could be a regular apartment building, and it could be in a redevelopment zone, which requires an affordable housing set aside, right? Or it could be something that's already in a zone that is able to do what you want to build or have. So depending on your state and wherever it is that you want to do business, you can potentially, depending on how your organization is set up, get grant money from the federal government. I mentioned here in New Jersey, the Department of Community Affairs. They have funding. I don't know how many people have heard of Community Development Block Grant funding. You can get resources from CDBG, and that's federal. And it also goes down to county and municipal. You may also be able to determine whether or not you're going to do low income tax credit housing. You may decide that, and these are things I'm throwing out, that if you're taking notes, you're going to definitely need to do research to figure out if that's the type of funding that you want to get. You may also be able to get other state funded programs. For example, if you're a minority-owned business, there may be funding or grants for you to run your program and or build housing. If you're a woman-owned entity, there may be funding for you to do that kind of thing. HUD puts out a forecast every year of potential funds and needs it has. There may be an opportunity to partner and get funding that way. You also can get funding from banks, right? If your company is credit worthy, if you have the collateral, or if you have a track record or a relationship, you may be able to get funding that way. You can do joint ventures, collaborations with other entities that have the same vision and mission as you. And that's important. When I say vision and mission, not every developer is interested in affordable housing, right? So you want to have those conversations with the people that you've vetted, right? And those people that you think will be on the same page with you for the long haul. And then there's other types of investors. You have angel investors. You have investors who may want to put in a certain amount of money into your project at the beginning of the phase, and then may want it at the first renting of the first 10 apartments. They may want their cash out at that point. There's different ways to do that. I just want to digress for a second. Did that answer your question, Mark?
Oh yeah, it did. I just wanted to ask just in case someone didn't think about it, but yeah. I do appreciate you shedding light on that.
Sure. So I'm going to tell a story, right? First, I'm going to say it's always very important to do your research. Research is really free. The computer will give you anything you ask it. And if it doesn't come back with exactly what you ask it, it will refer you to something else that will give you what you need. And then you can always pick up the phone and call folks. I know someone, an investor I've worked with for a while, and he purchased some land from his friend's mother, right? And the land right now is being used by this very, very popular Italian restaurant for parking. And they own a parking spot across the street, but they just decided to put up some posts and use the lot for their parking. He gets a call from an investor, a developer who wants to buy the land. The the city has it assessed at like $86,000, with improvements or whatever. It's not in a very high-end area, but ironically, down the block from it, there's these beautiful, beautiful luxury apartments within a 2-minute walking distance, and within 6 minutes, there's a train station that goes direct to Manhattan. So the investor friend calls me and says, hey, these people want to offer me $150,000 for this lot. And I'm saying to myself, okay, so they want to offer you double for the lot. I said, but what can you build on it? He goes, I don't know. He says, I just bought it and just, didn't do anything with it. And, I think we're going to go ahead and go with that. I told him no. I said, don't sell the lot. He goes, why? It's free money. I said, is it really free money? So then when I sat down and told him that most developers, if they're real serious and they want a property, if they think you have any kind of intuitive understanding, they will come to you with a sound proposal and a contract. First of all, in that scenario, I told him, I said, well, what can be built there? He goes, I don't know. I said, why don't you know? You own the land. And right down the block from it, there's these luxury high-rise apartments. So I said to him, once I did my due diligence, I told him, I said, they could put 50 units on that lot, and they could sell them at X amount of dollars. And at the end of it, that building could be worth upwards of $25 to $50 million, depending on the amenities, et cetera, et cetera. And I said, if the developer was very serious, he would offer you a percentage of the as-built contingent upon the site plan approval before the building was built. And so when we did the numbers on a lower scale, upon signing of the contract after site plan approval, he could be getting a check for $2.5 million. And I said, if you want to get, a little bit more savvy, maybe you don't sell them the land. Maybe allow them to build on it and pay you something every month in perpetuity. Maybe you have the contract say that, based off of what they're going to get after it's built. So there's a lot of different things that you can do. So if you run into a scenario like that, if somebody says, yeah, I'll sell you my land, but, and then they present you with a conversation like I just described, you definitely want to have your accountant, you want to have a real estate attorney who's well-versed in commercial real estate. You want to have a solid team around you. Okay, I'm going to move on. Are there any questions or comments before I move on? Okay, awesome. Okay, so the next thing I will recommend in terms of being ready, when you want to purchase or get involved in real estate at a commercial level, which apartment buildings are, whether it's affordable housing or not, you want to understand what the cap rate is or the capitalization rate is, which is going to be the return on your investment. And so what that is the cap rate is simply just dividing the property's operating income. That's net operating income. That's the operating income after your taxes, your water, your sewer, your electric bill is paid, your maintenance and that kind of thing, your insurances and whatever expenses that the property has. So you want to take your net operating income and then you want to go ahead and divide that by the market value, right? So for example, if the property was valued at $1 million and then your operating income was 130,000, $100,000, the cap rate on that would be 10%. And so that's, the cap rate is typically expressed in a percentage. And it's just your investor's potential return on your investment. The other thing that you're going to want to sit down and figure out once you get all of your funding in place and once you understand what it is you're going to build, you want to have a pro forma put together. And the pro forma is like a big giant budget of all the expenses. It's a projection of your property's cash flow over the holding period. And what's included in that would be obviously the income from your rents, the expenses like I just described, and any debt service that you have. Okay, and so then you've got projections of the historical data and some other stuff. So a lot of times when developers go to do affordable housing, it becomes an issue because it's not cheap, right? And then the other thing is you've got to figure out if it's in fact going to pencil out. Is it going to be financially feasible to do something like that? So you want to definitely be clear on that. It's something that you've got to make sure that your team knows all of the components to the model, the financial model that needs to go into place for that. So obviously part of it would be income from your rents, the expenses, which I just talked about. But what a lot of people don't think about, whether it's a 4-unit building or a 44 unit or 144 unit, well, if it's at that scale, most of the time they do, is your vacancy losses. Vacancy losses are when the unit is vacant and how much time is it going to take you to recoup money to have your operating income be at 100%. And so then you definitely want to think about your mortgage debt, your taxes, and those other things. And at the beginning, obviously, acquisition costs and a whole bunch of other things. And then the other thing too to consider is construction costs, right? Permits. If that's something, if you're starting from scratch, right? Inspections and things like that. And then there's something called a developer's fee. And you always want to be able to have cash reserves as well. And then if you are doing some type of set aside or requirement, let's say you purchase a building and it has market rate units or commercial units, some people call it, and then it has some affordable units, or let's say you're building something like that. Is the municipality going to require, anything from you in terms of a developer's fee for not doing any affordable units? So those are the other things you need to understand from the municipality. So this is why when you talk to the planning department, or if you read the development, not the development, I apologize, the redevelopment plan on what the municipality or the township is requiring in terms of building, you'll be able to understand it. And it's a lot of reading. It's not, very exciting unless you really love doing this kind of thing like I do. Even talking about it can seem very dry, very wah, 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 right? But the information is important. So from what I've said so far, I hope some of the nuggets that I've been able to share is helpful. Any questions?
I do. I know you mentioned that when looking into the affordable housing space, you want to make sure that your team is in place. What are the key players needed on that team to have a successful affordable housing build up from A to Z?
Okay. Well, before I talk about the team, you definitely want to have relationships, right? You want to know who the players are in your city council, right? What are their goals for affordable housing? Some council members are liaisons to specific niches of economic development or social equity for their goal for whatever their terms are. So understand what they are focused on. You want to know your planner, your zoner. For example, in New Jersey, I'm a housing commissioner here, and some other things. But in New York, and when in my license, I'm not renewing it right now since February because I'm working on other things. I just don't have the bandwidth. But in New York, each municipality, or I should say, there are boroughs in New York, and there's a community borough president, right? There's a community borough committee, and each of those committees take on different sectors of the economy and or just things that need to happen to make the city move, and housing is one of them. You want to know who the housing people are in the area in which you're going to want to buy, invest in as a partner, or develop, because and that includes inspectors and zoning officers, because that they're going to be in your business one way or another, right? So in terms of your team, you want to have somebody on the team that understands math and who knows how to do complex financial reporting and, for example, a pro forma budgets and those kinds of things. Someone who can help you understand operating expenses and someone who can help build in what that looks like against your pro forma. Someone who can speak to your investing, your financial investors, your mortgage company, someone who can help you write your financial. And I'm just talking about somebody who understands the financial arm of the project. Somebody who can do the paperwork for any grant you're going to go after. Because they will dig into your business like with a fine tooth comb, and they're going to ask you questions, and you're going to need to be able to answer them exact. So you need somebody like that. You're going to need an architect if you're building from scratch. You're going to need an engineer, Okay. Architects usually are kind of engineers, but you know, you need to have that conversation with the person. You want to definitely make sure you vet these people to make sure that they have a really solid track record. And you know where their buildings are, or you have references that are verifiable. Um, you're going to need somebody who's administrative, who can do your paperwork, and that kind of thing. You're going to need, if I didn't mention it already, a real estate attorney. I think I mentioned it earlier. And the reason I recommend a real estate attorney, with no disrespect to other types of practicing lawyers in terms of the entity in which they practice, the reason I say it's important to use a real estate attorney who has multiple unit and affordable housing background is because the laws are very different in terms of, I mean, real estate law is real estate law, but when you get into affordable housing, that ties into state and federal regulations. You want somebody who understands that. You also want someone who, if one of your funding sources or your joint venture partners comes at you with some kind of a challenge, that person is going to be able to help navigate that. Okay, somebody just put something in the chat. This is from Jim. Here's a worksheet with links to many of the types of community lenders. Yep. Thank you. That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, so there's an opportunity in the chat. So you want to take a look at that. Thank you for sharing that information. That's very key to what I was just saying about someone on your team who understands financing. In the chat, he's talking about community lenders, right? So the Community Reinvestment Act, a lot of these community lenders are required by law to put funding into development in the community. So thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate that. So your real estate attorney and someone who is not going to be dismissive of you. And what do I mean by that? We all get busy, but it has to be someone who's a willing player, a willing participant, and who understands that oftentimes in these types of housing scenarios, time is of the essence. I mean, it's always of the essence when you want to get a deal done, right? But when you're dealing with affordable housing, and depending upon the type of housing you try to build, whether it's low income tax credit, project based, or whatever it is, or funding from some other source, responsiveness is key when it comes to a community lender or any other entity. So you want someone who's not so overwhelmed that they can't manage your workload. And then you need someone who's going to be the face of the company, someone who's going to go out and meet and have conversations with the council or the community borough board, or who understands the whole goal of what the company or organization is trying to do. And then that person is the marketer, the deal maker, or whatever else. And it would be helpful for that person to be familiar with everything that needs to happen, although they don't need to be the expert, because you want to surround yourself with an expert of team members. And so those are some of the people that own an accountant. You definitely need an accountant. You need somebody who's going to, now, I guess that person could be the person who does the financial analysis and analytics, but it may not necessarily be, right? Yeah.
Okay.
Ms. Malloy, I have a question, if
Yes.
I may, Mark.
Go right ahead, Jim.
So I'm very interested in these types of deals. These are not the types of deals that many of us are used to doing. So we're not familiar with how to put together the capital stack. I know that I put the worksheet in there, and these are a lot of the people that are in that space, but I also know there's a lot of other people. That's a very small sampling of some of the people that are in that space. So my curiosity is, what would be your advice about where would you want to network to find the people that are in this space, that are doing deals in this space, the developers, the investors, but even more importantly, the people at the municipality level, whether it's city, county, or state, to make sure that you're getting in that flow, if you will, in the stream and meeting the right people.
Very good question. So my journey has been interesting. I've gone to Washington, D.C. to be amongst the players. I'll go anywhere to get the information and to connect to the people that I need either information from or to understand how to do something. So here's an example, and I'm not sure, Jim, where you're from, but New Jersey has a redevelopment authority. The New Jersey Redevelopment Authority is responsible for funding infrastructure projects, housing projects, all kinds of stuff. They're a co-host of the annual Governor's Conference, which is in Atlantic City every year. In that conference, everybody in the housing sector comes, everyone you can think of under the sun, from housing projects to multi-million-dollar developers to, small landlord, not necessarily always a small landlord, but anybody who's in community redevelopment and or housing development goes to that kind of a conference. Look to see in your town or your state if there's a redevelopment authority, and then look to see what their housing niche or goals are. Then there are major nonprofit housing development agencies that may host events. Take a look at that. Those are places where, and they're more like, the dog and pony kind of conferences where there's tables of all kinds of vendors and things like that. But the primary sessions, they will discuss, what's coming, in terms of development, what's coming in terms of funding. New Jersey Mortgage Finance Agency is another big player in that because they fund housing development projects. They just partnered with to do a program with hospitals in New Jersey, $11 million to build affordable housing. So places like that, I recommend, just researching if you know of a major housing development organization in your city, in your state. Google their website and take a look and see what they're doing. If they have training, most of these places offer training. They also have conferences. And so those are places where you get your business cards together, your pitch for what it is you're trying to do, your capability statement, and then go and just have a conversation and just ask. Ask if they're interested in learning more, or ask if they have a project or an opportunity that you may be able to participate on. A lot of these bigger players are looking for joint venture folks. You can always do a joint venture with someone to get involved. I've done that, and then I ended up with the development project. So oftentimes, if you become an expert in a specific area, which is what I've done, I look for places that have gaps in understanding and need help. And then I would, fit in that way, and then, get invited to other things. So I hope that answered your question. It was a little bit long-winded.
Very much. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. Also was interested if the organizations in most cities that a lot of them go by very similar acronyms, like here in Chicago, the community investment banks, the federal home loan banks, the community land trusts, the CDFIs, those types of folks, do they give preferential treatment to nonprofits? Do nonprofits get to bid first? Do they get to the first of the line? And if that's so, would it behoove us to possibly start a nonprofit if we're interested in either development or redevelopment of existing properties in challenged neighborhoods?
I cannot say 100% yes, but I've run two nonprofits and the agency as an interim for when they had no executive director, but and the agency I built the affordable housing for, yes, it was easier to get the funding because they were a housing development agency, they were an affordable housing agency, and then I ran a community land trust agency. And, you know, we had to really cross our T's and dot our I's to get the funding from the CDFI, but they do look for these types of opportunities. So if you are going to build a project and you are not an affordable housing entity, do some research on that because that's a great opportunity there. You don't have to be, but there's funding out there for nonprofits to build affordable housing.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mark, for allowing me the time.
No problem, Jen. Thank you for the question. So, Dierdre, I know there's a lot of like hurdles when it comes to this space that you have to jump to. What are some like the red tape hurdles that you've encountered or you've heard about when it comes to affordable housing?
Okay, that's a loaded question. Okay, most of the time, people think of affordable housing as something bad, something not attractive, something that's going to be a detriment to the community, to home values, and et cetera. And that's not true. And so you hear people call it workforce housing now. But one of the things you have to do is know the facts, know the story behind why you're doing what you're doing, why it's important. And one of the things we had to do, because you know I was co-writer of an ordinance here to change some things, which I might get into later. But when I was doing the new home construction townhome, the whole thing was affordable housing. I mean, realtors came out of the woodwork. I mean, I'm a realtor too, but I took that hat off to do the project. Politicians came out of the woodwork, people from the county, et cetera. All kinds of people came out of the woodwork to oppose the project. So you've got to be ready to answer the opposition, right? And don't be insulted. You just have to, as a matter of fact, defend, for lack of a better way to articulate it, why this is a good thing, right? So I had to change the narrative. And then I started having everybody else and started including the governing body change the narrative. I mean, yes, it's affordable housing, but what's affordable housing? It's a housing that people who work can afford to live in, right? Firefighters, teachers, secretaries, nurses, whoever. It's for people who work. It's not for people who don't work, right? Because if you don't work, obviously there's different type of funding for that. But this is housing for, you know, low, very low and moderate income people who otherwise would not be able to live in a particular community. So that's one of the things that you need to be able to be ready to answer, which is another reason why you have to be very clear on your funding and be very certain that you can accomplish the project that you're planning to accomplish, with the exception of any surprises. And you definitely need to have contingency funding in your budget. Contingency money is what, you know, what if, you know, the permits take longer, or what if, you know, during the site plan environmental, they find a truck in the ground, like what happened to me. So it's just all kinds of things could happen. But at the end of the day, you've got to stand firm on your purpose and your intention for building. Another thing you're going to have to deal with is multiple people wanting to walk your site or to be asking you questions. And there's definitely going to be people that need to do that, from inspectors, you know, environmental folks who, because as if you're building from scratch, from each phase, you're going to have different types of people walking your site. And you're going to be people, there will be people maybe who are going to challenge you or delay you. You've got to be ready to have an answer for that and a plan to answer that delay, right? And then your marketing, you've got to be able to deal with the immediate public as well, you know, the neighbors, you know, you got to be able to assure them that this is a good thing. And then who's going to live there, right? So if you're doing market rate housing with affordable housing mixed in it, is there going to be a requirement from you as the developer to do some kind of a lottery system, right? Because you want it to be fair in terms of those who want to or need to live there have the fair access. So those are just some of the things there. But I think partly the biggest challenge would be running out of money or not getting your budget right. So you definitely want to be able to price your project appropriately. And that's a key thing.
Thank you for answering that. Does anyone else have any questions or comments or anything like that? Feel free. The floor is open.
Okay. I'm picking on Brooklyn. Right. So I am going to share just, and this is, people can add this into, click on it and take a look at it later. But here is an example of a beautiful project that's just recently been done in Brooklyn, affordable housing, 2 days ago. And so before they started, they had to go through all of the processes that I described. And you have to figure out what scale you want to build on, right? So obviously this is a larger scale than something small, as is the next one I'm going to share. But these are examples of some great projects that have been done. Right now, we have a project here in Montclair that used to be the Social Security building. And somehow the municipality ended up owning the lot and made a deal with a private developer who has put 250 apartments plus commercial space at the bottom. And so that's a very large scale project. And in those kinds of development types, if that's something that you're endeavoring, the municipality may ask you for something, right? Parking is tight here. There's like no parking. I mean, people are waiting because they think somebody's walking to their car to pull out. And, you know, so 2 parking decks came out of that development deal. As part of the Housing Commission, we press on to the municipality and developers for specific things. And, you know, it's up to the municipality, obviously, but you may have people at the municipal or governing body level challenge you. So that's another roadblock, if you will, or a stumbling block, especially when you get in front of the planning board, if that's the type of development you're going to do. I mean, if you're just buying an existing building with, you know, moderate to you know, maybe an extended amount of rehab, you won't have certain challenges, but you'll still need to go before the governing body. So yeah, I just wanted to share that information. The articles are good information to read, and it kind of gives you a couple of scenarios of what the developers are doing, you know, how much the units are costing. If you want to play with the numbers, you can do that. But yeah. Any other questions?
If anybody else have any more questions, feel free to ask them now.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I will say that when you start a housing development or a project where you're going to acquire an apartment building, start with the end in mind. What do I mean by that? How many units are you going to build, and what's the price? Obviously, that's going to be figured out in your pro forma. But you're at some point going to need to start your marketing of those units so that either you're going to have them available in phases for people to live in once you get your CO, or you're going to start having them be occupied as soon as the last unit is completed. So you want to think about the lease up phases as you're going through your project, and you want to put a timeline in place that helps you to begin to offset some of your cost burden, as you near the end of the project, if you can do that, depending on the type of place it is, because so that's something else to consider. And then you want to have a property manager. That's another person you want to have, someone who understands the business of property management, because I've done property management for a long time as well, because of the way I think. I just had to really know all aspects of what I was involved in. And you really need someone who's focused on being a property manager. You may also have a separate leasing specialist as well, or the property manager, depending on how large or small the units are, might be able to do that all on their own. And then so another expense to think about is going to be, what type of software are you going to run your leasing model from? Yardi has some amazing software. For example, it's not cheap. It's like 18,000 and up. And then there's some administrative fees that come with it, but it's amazing. It's like they have an affordable housing software as well, specifically for affordable housing, that addresses all of the types of things that affordable housing might throw at you. All righty. So thank you. That's it.
Awesome. I think I had another question. I'm trying to remember exactly what it was, but what is the incentive for developers or investors who are jumping into the affordable housing space, aside from providing adequate housing for low to medium income individuals? What is the incentive for us?
Tax breaks. I mean, you can get deferred tax payments for up to 5 years. You need to talk to the municipality about that, but you can definitely get deferred tax payments as well. Yeah. So,
now, with all, I know, with the opportunity zones that are popping up now, I'm not sure if that's been done away with per the last administration, but can developers use the opportunity, the OZs, to benefit from affordable housing as well?
Yes. However, opportunity zones are really a big thing right now. So, and then there's land banking, and then there's land trusts, but it depends on what is in the opportunity zone. That goes back to the zoning map, right? And let me see here. I have something else I can share with you, but this is for New Jersey. Hold on. So, just give me a second, everybody. I appreciate your patience. Okay. So there is an opportunity zone program in New York. And I won't do this, but there's an opportunity zone tool that we have, in New Jersey, and it is amazing, to say the least. And I'm going to share it with you as soon as my computer behaves. But it's not right now. But you need to really understand what the opportunity, what's available in the opportunity zone. So the type of housing you want to build might not be available in the opportunity zone. Okay, here we go. I'm going to share this with you. And I'm going to recommend that you all take a look at this, okay? If you're interested in opportunity zones, and in your state, there will be one, maybe, because governors, you just need to look at this, even though it's New Jersey. I'm sharing it with you because it will explain to you about opportunity zones and the regulations and things of that nature. But and then there's a map tool, which is amazing. You click on it and it zones into the literal area in whatever town or county you want to look in, all the way down to a street. So I'm assuming there are tools like that for other states. New York has one, the Albany website. If you Google for New York, Opportunity Zones New York, they have a whole website similar to this. But you need to know what the township or the municipality has in terms of opportunity zone buildings available. And then once you do find out what the opportunity zones are, you need to look and see what can be built there, or if there is a building there already. And then there's another tool I'm going to share with you all real quick. I'm on an email from this Opportunity Zone network, and I'm sure they should have the same tool in other states. Op sites. Okie dokie. So my computer is a little slow right now. Okay, so I'm going to share this with you. It's called Op Sites. Okie dokie, and you can go ahead and take a look at this, and then you can go on to register if you want, and you'll get emails, or you can just look at their website and see what makes sense. And what happens is I get emails from people wanting to do deals to my inbox because I've registered and I've told them what I'm looking to do. I was working with someone who wanted to purchase a building in an opportunity zone, and I ended up finding out that the individual wasn't serious. So I sent a contract severing the relationship, a notice to sever the relationship with that individual and his board. Sometimes you're going to be in a situation where you're going to know you don't want to do business with someone because, and I'm going to say, people who are entrepreneurs, people who are serious about, this arena, you have the right to say to someone, no, thank you. This is not the right business opportunity for me. And I think the more you become comfortable in what your why is and what your goals are, you're going to get to that place. I've walked away from 2 deals. One was, a lot of money in New York. And then another one was just recently because, pardon the way I'm saying this, but the guy was a jerk. And I don't need to do business with people who are going to, give me a headache, be condescending or problematic. It's just not worth it. I mean, my peace is more valuable than anything. And you're going to get to a place maybe like that, and that's okay. Any comments or questions? Daryl?
Yeah. How, he said from there. I guess you knew I was going to ask something, right?
I'm off of mute.
April 24th, I was reading an article about the Assembly and the Senate being in legislation. They were discussing the good cause eviction. I was wondering if you had any update on that, if they're still trying to move forward with that bill, or has it died?
Okay, that's an interesting question. I am working on a bill. It's called the anti-eviction bill. I'm working with the Assembly and the Senate. And no, the bill hasn't died. The bill is proposing $750 million to prevent eviction. The funds will go to landlords. Obviously, it's for past and future rents during the moratorium, though, only. And it has some other provisions in it. Hopefully, it will go to committee to Thursday. We're not sure. It's not dead. The New Jersey Apartment Association has agreed to many amendments that were proposed. And so we're waiting to see what happens. That's another part of the business that I get involved in. I've been involved in legislature for a long time because it affects our business. It affects housing. And, when I was really active in real estate before I started my consulting business, I was even paying attention, which I still do, to legislature that impacts the mortgage and banking industry, CRA, all that kind of stuff. You may want to, at some point, pay attention to legislature because it impacts our lives, and it's easy to get involved in. You just need to, again, you can start with your governing body, but you've got assembly people over your district. Pick up the phone, call their office, send them an email. If the assembly person or the senator doesn't get back to you, their chief of staff will. And we work closely with these people, but at the end of the day, we hold them accountable to what they say they're going to do. So if they have a bill that they're sponsoring, you can testify. You can, before the Assembly or the Senate. So Daryl, that bill hopefully will pass. Governor Murphy made some announcements today about the moratorium being lifted on the public health emergency. He has extended until the end of December of 2021, the utility moratorium shut off, so nobody's utilities can be shut off until the end of the year, and some other stuff. So yeah, you can go on the website and see that, but no, there's a few bills out there. And so there's another bill that I want to ban the box. It was a bill that prevents landlords for doing a criminal check past 10 years. We were able to get that passed. Fair Share Housing Center took the lead on that. Senator Singleton, it was his bill. So, the bill protects people from being discriminated against, from committing a crime 20 years ago. And they've reformed, the recidivism issue is not a problem anymore. And so, that too it impacts housing. And so now what happens? Okay, it's up to people like me and anybody else who wants to hold landlords accountable to not discriminate, as long as a person is not, active sex offender or, somebody who's just, coming out on parole from doing some other horrible things and has a potential to continue to commit those kinds of crimes. So that's for the state of New Jersey, though. It's not for anywhere else. But, that's something for you all to think about. as potential landlords.
Now, you work in New York, right?
Not now. I'm in New Jersey right now.
Okay, so now, okay, all right. Are you aware of that same particular law that's in New York to where you can't do a background check?
No, I don't know of any law that tells a landlord they can't do a background check. A landlord is able to do a background check. Now, there might be some other components that are not fair in the process of the background check, but I'm not going to support any, and this is just my thing because I'm also a landlord advocate when it makes sense, right? And as somebody that invests in real estate, I want to be able to screen my people. Now I've done, for example, I've done screenings on tenants that come back with an eviction on their credit report, right? And then they have a story. They say, you know what? I had a plan with the landlord, and the landlord said they would wait, and everything was worked out. I have it written down, and it was dismissed, right? Go to the court and get the document that says it was dismissed. That's easy to do. And in fact, it lined up with what the person was telling me, and I rented them an apartment. So now there's legislature where and it's just really a hard fight. We're trying to prevent landlords from blacklisting people who have had evictions, because not everybody's eviction is to their own fault, right? It could be some other extenuating circumstance that caused it. Obviously, we know because of the pandemic, there's a whole bunch of new things that we're trying to, figure out. But I don't know anything about that one.
Okay, I'll find it.
Okay, thanks. I would like to know though, if you could share it with Mark, that'd be great.
Yep.
Let's see what else is here. Okay. Does anyone have any questions or any comments? Was I helpful?
Yes, I'd like to have a comment. This is Beverly. How are you?
Hi, Beverly. I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Great. First, I'm enjoying your conversation, all your knowledge. I'm just amazed that of everything that you know. How did you learn all of this? Did you take like a course in real estate or a degree in real estate? I'm just curious. You know so much.
Okay, thank you. I've been licensed since 2003 in New Jersey, and in 2015, I became an associate broker in New York. So I studied for those things, and I've been practicing real estate since 2003, and I've done business in New York. Hi, Greg. I'll see that. And so right now, I didn't renew my license for New York this year because I'm working on legislative stuff and some other very important things. And I just didn't, I'm not going to be in New York to do business. So, but when the mortgage industry crashed in 2008, I couldn't make any money in real estate. And so, I had to figure out a way to continue to do business. And as I said at the top of this call, my website is down right now, and I'm doing some new paperwork with the state because I'm redeveloping or redesigning how I do business based off of what's happening in COVID. And so within about 2 weeks, I'll have new paperwork at the state, and my website, I might post sooner than that because it's done. But what I did in 2008 is I began to figure out another way to make money legally, and that was through property management. And so what did I do? I decided that, hey, I'm a property manager. I know how to do this. And that's what I did. I got clients and managed their properties, and I showed their properties. But because I started my own consulting business, I was doing administrative things, and I was able to get a fee for my service and my time under my consulting business, because it's illegal to take a commission from anyone else besides your real estate broker. So I was not making money there. So I would do other things in real estate, and that's how I started. But then I did the construction training at NJIT, which was the worst experience of my life because it was hard and I literally cried. It was a woman instructor, and she built all these buildings in New York and this and this and that. And I was like, well, she can do it, I can do it. No, it's very difficult. But I learned a lot, quantity takeoff and a whole bunch of other things. I learned stuff about cement that I never thought I would want to learn. It was then that I learned that a minority business owner like me could do government contracting. So I started to research and read, and my plan was to do business with the Army and their housing barracks and that kind of thing. So I studied for a whole year how to do business with the federal government and how they do their housing and all that kind of stuff. And it's very intricate and just very intriguing. And that didn't work out because there's a contractor that they use, which now the FBI is investigating because of a mold situation. And I learned that when I was in Washington trying to pitch to the Army, that they had this contractor that they were working with. It was at the beginning of this year that I found out that the FBI was investigating them. So I decided that I was going to do some more studying about the different types of way to be in housing. And being with the government side, I found out about the state side and affordable housing. And then in 2011, someone recommended me to the governing body to be a housing commissioner. And then that happened. I was appointed. And then throughout that, I was able to help change how our municipality handled housing, because the housing commissioners are over the affordable housing and are advisors to the council. So in order to be an advisor, I had to read and study, which led me to administrative codes and statutes for housing, and a whole bunch of other stuff. Yeah, and so then after that, I got asked to lead this project of 100% affordable housing. And then from there, I just never stopped learning.
Wow, that's fascinating. One more question. Whatever happened to your friend with the vacant lot? Did he take your advice?
Yes,
Or did he sell it?
he did. No, he didn't sell it. I've been working with this individual for years. He took my advice. I contacted the restaurant. They know that the owner knows they're using it as a parking lot. And for now, I told them we're not making any changes. I responded to the developer with the scenario I told you, after site plan approval and the cost of what the building might be. And I told them to go back to the drawing board to figure out what other kind of letter of intent or offer they want to make. And so the partner of the developing firm, and I'm going to be quite frank, they expected, because he's a minority, for him to be stupid and for him not to have any knowledge. And then, the partner reached out to me and said, what's this about you not accepting our LOI? I said, what's your email? I'll forward you what I said. And I forwarded it to him. And so now they're on the phone with all those people I talked about being on your team, trying to figure out what the project is going to cost so they can offer him a higher price. But he's not going to sell at the moment. I pulled a title search because I want to see what else is going on with the property. There were some things that I checked. You can always check for a deed. That's public records. When you're looking at a lot or a property, you can pull the deed on it. And also, I recommend doing an OPRA request. That's Open Public Records Act request with the municipality or the township where the property that you're looking to invest sits. And that'll be a report that tells you what's going on with the property at the municipal level. And you can also do it at the county level too. And a title search on a property that you're interested in investing in will tell you, and your attorney can do this for you, or a title company that you might have a relationship. That's another relationship, Mark, a title company. They can run a report. It's like a Carfax on the property.
Right.
Yeah, and that can tell you if there's any liens on the property or anything else. So.
Now, the people that were using it as a parking lot, is he aware of that?
Yeah, he's aware of it.
Okay.
And so What we're probably going to do for right now is draw up some kind of a contract with the restaurant to get some kind of a monthly fee from them.
The reason I asked that, I remember one time, a long time ago, and have patience with me, but it's something called an easement. Like when somebody does something for a long time, and
Yes,
it's like they can continue to do it if you don't ever question it. Could that have happened with him, or with that restaurant, as far as them parking, like an easement for parking, if he never questioned them?
it's possible. It's not an easement, but but when someone uses something, to access a right of way, or it's possible, like utilities company have an easement of right. They can just go on your property regardless of what you say. So it's possible. I can't project whether or not that would have, but I put the ball on our side of the court by giving the restaurant notice.
Which was great, yes, just for to let them know that you're aware of it, and it's under a certain time limit. Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, thank you, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm still learning. I'm at the process of. It just fascinates me, real estate in general.
Yeah,
But thank you so much.
you're welcome. Thank you for asking. Okay.
Awesome. Does anyone else have any questions for Dierdre? I know we're 30 minutes over the hour.
Hi, Dierdre. This is Greg. Thank you for the information. Unfortunately, I showed up a little late, so I'm missing quite a few of it, or the information. I had to go back and review it later. But I have a question. You mentioned deed checking in both municipality level and county level. Is there a difference?
No, not necessarily, because liens at the municipal, well, no, not necessarily. Well, there could be, for example, at the municipal level, it could be sewer or water that was purchased, that unpaid sewer or water bills that was purchased for someone. And there could be tax liens at the county level or something like that. So it could be a mechanics lien, or somebody had, failed to pay for something. So I wouldn't necessarily say there's a difference, but, I think that it's important to check and have an attorney do it for you. I'm not an expert in that, but I just know it's important to do.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay.
Awesome. So if does anyone else have any questions, concerns, or comments?
How can we reach you? Is there information? I don't see information posted here.
I'm getting there, Greg.
Oh, my bad.
But go right ahead.
I'll put it in the chat.
All righty. So with that being said, I want to thank you, Dierdre, again for taking time out of your schedule to educate us on this platform about affordable housing. And for everyone who jumped in late or may not have had the chance, this will be posted on the YouTube channel tomorrow. Tomorrow afternoon for certain, with the show notes as well. And I will also post Dierdre's information that she posted in the chats as well. So Dierdre, again, thank you for gracing us with your presence, and we look forward to hearing from you again pretty soon with the nitty-gritty stuff.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. I appreciate everyone's questions as well. Thank you. Good luck, everyone.
Thank you.
Good, Dierdre.